Welcome to the Strangers on the Way podcast. I'm so excited for you guys to meet today's guest, Joe Girten. I met Joe just a few months ago, and we are on the same leadership team for our group called Thrive, which is 30s and 40s group in our church. Joe, along with some others, just got a vision to bring together people in this age and stage, and it's been such a gift and really wild to see how it's grown in just a few months. Um, One of the first times I saw Joe, I saw a picture of him as a train conductor, and I feel like this exemplifies who he is in a lot of ways, just bringing everyone onto the train. And he has an eye to see people, and especially those that maybe the world wouldn't always see. And I've just been very moved by his character and the way he honors the people around him. And so, Joe, welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you. Would you just start off by sharing who you are and what you love?
Thank you so much, Lauren. Again, it is such an honor just to be asked. This is so much fun. Um, for work at least, I've always been kind of a worker. I got my first job when I was 14, and for the first 11 years, I was in customer service. I've always seemed to gravitate to being around people. And in the last 7 years, I've been a warehouse manager. So it's kind of stepping into a little bit more serious role and learning how to lead people. And it's a learning process over time, but it's something that I really enjoy doing now. Um, and over the years, praying with God about where I should be. And my mind always went to be the biggest thing in life is your career and where that path takes you. And um, I just kept praying over, I don't feel totally secure in where I'm at and where should I be and what should I be doing and what's going to make the biggest impact. And I spent so much time praying, and finally I got this response that was just so simple and said, "You're a child of God. Just focus on doing that well." And that kind of took me aback, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't really think about it that way." Um, and so now I've been putting all my time into figuring out how that's done well. Um, and my journey's taken me. It's taken me many years of slowly figuring out, what that means and where that puts me. But that journey is gotten me to a place where I can share that with others and hopefully uh, make it so that journey isn't so long for other people.
I love
Um,
that.
so that's where I kind of am job wise at the moment. But as for what I love, anybody that knows me knows I can't keep off the water on the lake, on the ocean, whatever has to do with the water and beach. That's where I'm at. Um, so in the summer, I'll either be found on a boat or paddleboarding or um, anything that every day if I can, I'll be. I'm addicted to spending time in the water. There's a nice peacefulness to it. There's an excitement to it. Um, Last summer, I spent many nights out just camping by myself. I'll throw an anchor in the middle of the lake and the stars, and waking up to the sunrise in the morning when everything's calm and reading, and oh, it's just everything about it. Um,
That. Have you always,
yeah,
ever since you were little, loved like nature and water and
yeah, I think so.
yeah.
I since I was 1 month old, I was put on a boat, so I've always been
Oh, I
always
love
loved going out, and um, me and my family would camp. That would be our vacations, was camping, and
fun.
it wasn't exactly roughing it camping, but we,
Glamping.
but yeah, glamping, but being outdoors, yeah, definitely. And now that whole journey has taken me to spend a lot of time serving at the chapel now. Um, you'll find me in the lobby every Sunday, greeting. Um, I'm a table leader for Thursday night men's Bible studies, and just starting to dabble with helping with the kids downstairs. And then, as you mentioned, leading that group called Thrive, which is still in the beginning stages, but definitely growing, and so excited where I see that heading,
Yeah.
especially with you on the team,
Thanks.
bringing it to new heights every month.
Oh, it's such a fun team, and I've just been
Hmm.
amazed. I think the chapel has a lot of families, and I would say I help with young adults, but it's been amazing to watch. Like, as soon as we created a space for 30s and 40s, it's like they came out of the woodwork. And so
Hmm.
it makes me think about creating spaces and places for people to connect. And I just love the vision. And God gave you the word thrive, right? I think, if
Hmm.
I'm correct.
Yeah,
Would
we
you
did.
share a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
Yeah, when the group was first started, the first couple meetings, actually, we were, um, not many people know, but the original idea for this group was actually trying to find something for singles at the chapel, because we saw a huge need. And actually, one day I just happened to be around one of the pastors that was helping start it, and they said, "Hey, you're single. Why don't you come to this meeting?" I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And
Love it.
they're like, "You can help us figure out how we could do this well." I said, "Okay." So we met for dinner a couple times and talked about it, and over the discussion, we realized that the need at the chapel for just community in general for that 30 to 40-year-old range was huge. And I started pointing out, I said, "Hey, there really isn't anything for me being part of it, that age group." I was like, "There really isn't anything for our specifically for our age group." So I would feel weird discluding those that are married. They need that community too.
Yeah.
And I was like, we could just create a social group that people can find somebody in that group. But so that's how this all kind of started. We ended up opening it up to everybody, and I'm so thankful that that's the course that it took, because it's a little less awkward, and we could all have fun together, and we could still, those of us that are single can learn from the ones that are married in the group, and just that community is so needed. So we were talking about a name for that, and we were all kind of sent home to think about it, and we had a group chat going on, and we were all throwing ideas out there, and I was looking stuff up online trying to find inspiration somewhere, and I couldn't find anything, and I just started praying about it, and I said, what's our goal here? And the word thrive came up, and I just popped it into the group chat. I said, "Hey, is there any way we can use this word? Something feels right about this." And we tossed it back and forth and adding different words to it. And I was like, let's just leave it at thrive. And and it just kind of felt right. And it just seems to be really fitting ever since.
Yeah, I agree. We were just talking about this morning. There was a wonderful woman who came and led a kind of a workshop for us in February, and she ended up playing a song or recommending a song at the end, I believe, and it ended up being called Thrive, and she didn't even
Hmm.
know that it was Thrive. So it's like this thread is being woven, and it's really beautiful because I've been thinking a lot in this season about Jesus saying like he came to give us abundant life, like life to the full. And when you think about thriving, it's like it's not just surviving, it's like life to the full. And so it's been really neat going after that with this community and been amazing to watch it form and grow and yeah, just incredible. So, and thank you for your leadership. It's been so wonderful. Yeah. Yes. What else are you passionate about?
Um, you know, um, my passion, and that's why it's kind of fitting for this group, especially with my background. My passion is um, really been about helping others find community. That's why it was definitely such a God moment that I just happened to be there and asked to be brought into this meeting. And It answered a lot of prayers for me when I was trying to figure out ways that, you know, my specific story or my specific gifts could end up helping somebody. And it's funny how these things just get dropped into your lap when um but yeah, me not having community when I first started this walk with God and with Jesus, it made me even more passionate to help others find that community.
Mm.
Um, I went to the chapel on and off for 8 years after I was baptized.
Oh.
Um, and I would go and sit alone, sit in the back, hoping nobody would talk to me,
Mm.
darting for the door after the service was over. It's like I didn't want to talk to anybody, and I don't know why that was because I'm generally a social person, but the awkwardness of not knowing anybody and not knowing, and it's not that they weren't welcoming. I just kind of it's just what I did. um, and it took until that 8 years later. It took until that first step where I said, I'm not feeling fulfilled with the life I'm currently leading, and I need to see. I see all these people around me leading something that seems a little bit different. So I made that first step, and I
Mm.
introduced myself to one of the pastors who just happened to have spoken at my friend's funeral the week before.
Wow.
And it kind of gave me an opportunity to talk to him and just to thank him for his words. And um, he was so enthusiastic about meeting me and he said, "Hey, there's a men's group that starts this Thursday. Why don't you just come and join that?" And
Mm.
he's like, "It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of guys, some your age." I said, "You know what? Okay." And I just said yes. And it was that
Cool.
that first yes that just exploded into everything else that that I've
Wow.
ended up involved with over the years. But um, it's trying to find those people um, that aren't finding their community or aren't finding their people, and just being someone that's open and welcoming to everyone and intentional about watching out for them and making sure they're finding their people or their thing that they would end up finding their passion in there. Um, and there's a quote by one of our favorite authors and speakers, Bob Goff, um, who
Love
said,
wow.
"You'll know you found the right community when all the talk is about Jesus and what he did with his life,
Mm.
not someone's opinions about what you ought to be doing with yours."
Wow.
And I always love that quote because
Yeah.
it's finding the friends that um, aren't judging your every move. Uh, we're all working on ourselves constantly. We're always trying to get rid of bad habits or things that aren't good for us, and having those friends that aren't judgmental about that and just more focused on the life that Jesus lived, and that's what we all should be aiming for. And
Mm.
now that I found those friends where we talk more about Jesus than our own faults, it's
Mm.
yeah, that quote is more real than ever.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I feel like in this season I'm learning again maybe or deeper just like what Jesus actually bought for us and like we literally have righteousness now like and so he doesn't see the worst in us. He sees the best in us. And I feel like when we're able to see the best in people and like call them up high and like remind them who they really are, all that other stuff falls away because it's like, oh yeah, like this is who I am. Like, yes, I am a leader. Yes, I am like a man or woman of integrity. And it's like you rise up to like who you really are. And then the stuff we struggle with, I don't know, it just seems to fade because love literally like pushes all that stuff out. And so I love that you have a community like that. You found it. And it's interesting that it took a risk because I think there's John Wimber's one of my favorite pastors from the Vineyard Church, and he said, "Faith is spelled Risk." And I think the further you go in with Jesus, it's just like more risk, but also more fun because it's like terrifying to take that initial step. But then it's like as you do,
Mhm.
this whole world opens up for you, or this experience opens up for you, or this encounter opens up for you, and it just keeps getting more and more exciting. And so, but it does take us to respond, or to, like, yeah, respond to the invitations that he puts in our path every day. So I just love, yeah, it's been neat. Like, I've only known you a little bit, but just to see, like, you're, you say yes, and to see what's come of that is really, really neat. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that word yes, um, when it comes to so many different things. If you feel any sort of nudge in a certain direction, obviously first ask yourself if that direction looks good for you or if it doesn't look so good for you. Because sometimes you could be nudged in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
But when you feel that draw towards something, if it looks good for you, just say yes. Make that first step. All you have to do sometimes is make one small courageous step. It doesn't have to be a big one. All
Yeah.
I did was say yes to showing up one day just to try it out, and then it just gets laid in front of you so easily
Yeah.
after that sometimes.
Yeah.
And it he finds a way to make what's good for you so easy as long as you put in the effort, a little bit of effort yourself.
Hmm.
um, he does the rest, and boy, it happens over and over again.
Yes. It's so fun. Oh, I love it. So
Mm.
good. Can we talk a little bit about Bob, Mr. Bob Goff?
Yes.
Why do you love him? It's like I do.
I love that we have that in common.
Me too.
When I first said his name and your eyes lit up and you were so excited, I was like, that's how I feel.
Yes.
when
Yes.
I uh when I first started listening to Christian podcasts and music, and um like while I was working, I would listen to things, and I was like listening to a podcast where they had Bob Goff on as a guest, and I was like listening to him talk, and the way he talked and the way he has fun with every situation and the way he puts intention into his relationships and thinks outside the box to be remembered.
Mm.
um I was like, who is this guy? So
Yes.
I looked it up, and he was talking, they were plugging one of his books in this podcast, so I was like, you know what, I don't read, I'm just gonna buy this book anyway, I don't care. So I and the first one was Undistracted,
Mm,
and I bought that book, and I was like, I'm just gonna try. I'm not a big reader, but I'm gonna try to read this and see. And I started reading it, and he just has a way of writing that's so easy and fun to read that I didn't want to put it down.
yeah.
And he has a way to bring every wild story. He's done so much in his life, and so many, and with his yes to every situation, and
Yeah.
um, becoming a pilot, and just crazy adventures he ends up on, and then all the way to giving up his practice as a lawyer that he had for 30 years, and um, opening up schools in Uganda and different. I'm like, who does that?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to keep reading more about like how an average person ends up in such an amazing life. And so that book, Undistracted, was kind of showing how like today's society, um, especially with social media and your phone and all these different things that distract your mind away from your focus and what is actually pulling you forward and keeping you stuck in, where you're at by staring at your phone for hours. Or um, he had a great way of explaining that, and ways to try to combat that. But after that book, I ended up reading every one of them that he's written, which
Every
there
one
are
of
quite a few. And
them.
then I found out that he has his podcast, and so I listened to all that next two podcasts, uh, and it was just like a snowball effect from there. And now I've listened to everything, read everything, and actually got to go see him speak when he was in Rockford last year, and got to meet him and shake his hand and thank him for everything he's done for me, and helping me see just a different perspective on life and a different way of looking at things. And it doesn't always have to be so serious. um, and bringing intentionality into your friendships and relationships, and um, a little bit of whimsy.
Yes, I love that. So
Mm.
good. I love he wrote about his kids and him writing all the world presidents. And I'm not sure if you
Hmm.
remember the story. And they actually got
Hmm.
invites to certain ones, and one of them even gave a key to their house, and they gave him a key, and they became friends. And it's just like, oh my goodness, yeah, like to even think outside the box like that, and to live like that, where anything is possible, is so powerful. And yeah, he's such a beautiful picture of like more than you could ask or imagine, you know? So neat.
Hmm.
I love Bob too.
If I could just find a way to live a little bit more like him, that's what I just keep saying. Like, uh,
Yeah.
bring one of his values into my life a little bit more, and what's possible.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, yeah, and you're doing it. I feel like even with yes, like he talks about that too,
Mm.
just saying yes and those small intentional moments. And I remember he talked about he'd go fly at airports a lot, and he got to know like the TSA
Mhm.
guy, and just like he said, it's like 3 minute conversations, and it's like, oh, who are those people we're seeing for 3 minutes every week, and like you can actually build friendship with them. And yeah, just such beautiful ways to love. And I love, yeah, love does is like one of the faves. So yeah, what a guy. Ooh,
Yes.
so good.
Love does. That my favorite story, that he has a walking path that goes past his house, and there's a guy that was walking past and just shouted out to him and said, "Hey,"
Yes.
and ended up talking to this guy. And this guy was so excited about proposing to the love of his life, and he said, your yard is perfect for this proposal. And this conversation goes on, and before you know it, this Bob's hosting a dinner at his own house for this random stranger in his backyard, and taking the couple on his boat and having this big romantic thing so he could propose. And just this the simplicity of this guy's love, and just knowing that he wants the best but doesn't know how to do it, and maybe can't provide it for himself. And Bob's yes to just bringing a stranger in and being somebody um that can provide that sort of joy for somebody is, I'm
Yes.
like, if God just keep placing people like that into your life and situations into your life to pull you into fun adventures, and he always
Yes.
does.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I love this podcast.
Mm.
And I like encourage people to meet strangers for that very
Mhm.
reason, because you just don't know like what could come of it. And it's been like one of the greatest joys of my life, just meeting people from all over. And I don't know, we have so much we can learn from one another. And yeah, it makes life that much more rich. So it's so good.
And it's sad in today's society that that's becoming more rare for people to want to talk to each other and just randomly meet others, because we're getting so used to texting rather than conversation. And
Yeah.
when you go to a grocery store, it's like head down and don't look at anybody. It's like,
Yeah.
where people used to stop at stoplights and wave to each other, and now it's like don't make eye contact. How society's changed, and we're really missing out
Yeah.
on those great experiences and relationships. But and not that I'm good at this at all, but but trying to be aware um of that, and trying to say yes more often to opportunities, or you know asking God what he wants to do in every situation, even if it's just going to the grocery store and giving you that opportunity to talk to somebody new,
Yeah.
and you never know what could happen.
Yes. Yes. And it always,
Mm.
I think even now in society, it does take risk. And so, like, before I
Hmm.
meet a stranger, I still get nervous, like, right
Hmm.
before I approach them or compliment them on their clothes or whatever it is. Like, and I think that's okay. And the more we see, like, oh, what beautiful things can come on the other side of it, then it gets a little more not as scary and more exciting to do.
Right.
And yeah, it's so fun. Well, speaking of life lessons, what life lessons have you learned in your decades of life so far that you'd like to share with listeners?
That's a good question. Um, Again, going along with the theme of our conversation, it's you can't be a follower of Jesus and do it by yourself.
Mm,
Um, and in Matthew 18, Jesus says, "For where two or three gather in my name, there I am with them." And I think that's alluding that prayer is more powerful in community,
mm,
with others who are filled with the Spirit and praying for God's will above their own.
mm,
Um, and Jesus constantly taught and displayed the importance of being in community with one another. And it's something that I think we're losing. So it's um, again with my story, it was a big lesson that I had to learn that I can't just go and try to figure it out on my own. And yes, I can pray and ask him for help, but sometimes you need that example and somebody else in your life showing you, somebody that's living their life, for God. It just looks so different. And when you enter more of those people into your life, it's kind of like the old saying, like, if you want to be a millionaire, don't be friends with a bunch of people that don't have money. Just make friends with millionaires so you can, y- you learn from them. It's the same sort of idea. Um, After I was baptized about 12 years ago, um, I knew I wanted a relationship with Jesus, and I felt him wanting to lead me, but I just didn't know how to follow. Um, and again, being alone, um, I continued letting the world tell me what was good for me and, how I should be living. And I always had this feeling of wanting to figure it out for myself and be in control of the situation. And the biggest thing I learned is it is the act of laying your life before God and giving up control that bears the most fruit in your life. Um, that is the biggest thing I learned. You can't do it on your own and control it yourself. Um, and there's so much freedom when you just give it all up, and in every situation, just say, I'm giving you control of this, and I'll follow, and I'll say that yes when I feel that you're leading me in the direction. Um, and um, I'm sorry, but it's leading me to another Bob Goff quote.
I love
I
it.
quote him all the time,
Good. So
but
good.
this is my favorite of all time. He said, "Only dead fish go with the flow," and it goes with my love of the water. And
Mm, love
but I love this analogy and the thought process behind it. And as I was thinking about it, you picture a dead fish kind of chewed up, floating on the top of the water, and it's just kind of going with the flow of day to day life and letting the ocean decide where it floats to, and that's just not living.
mm,
Um, you need to wake up and live. You need to
mm,
swim. There'll be big waves, that come from the enemy from time to time that will force you to go with the flow or try to knock you off the path, and keep you going in the same direction that the rest of the ocean's going, um, and try to drown you and push you off course. But you need to swim harder and swim toward Jesus, and keep swimming in that same direction. And he will take you to all the places you could have never imagined for yourself. So that I always stuck to this quote, and it always stuck in my head that, um, only dead fish will just float off in the ocean and go with the flow of everybody else, but you won't get anywhere,
mm.
if you don't swim and
Yeah.
have that clear, direction toward Jesus.
Mm, that's good.
Such a great imagery.
Yeah. What does that look like in your life? Like swimming towards Jesus? I love to make things
Mm,
like, practical for people.
mm. Well, it's definitely, again, the intentionality of creating habits.
Mm,
And everybody always says being in the Word and reading the Bible. And for newer believers, that can be a little bit hard because the Bible is very intimidating and very
Yeah.
difficult to understand sometimes. And it just takes practice. Over time, I found I was forcing myself to read it because I knew I had to.
Mm.
And as you build that relationship, I promise you, it does get easier.
Mm.
Um, and actually, a mutual friend of ours, Jen, told me that before she reads the Bible, she'll pray and ask God to read it to her. And she said, just that simple prayer before you read,
Mm.
it's amazing the way she ended up reading it and the
Mm.
way it ended up making sense. And maybe there was more emphasis on certain words than others. And I really like that was a beautiful way of explaining it,
Yeah.
and a good practice. But yeah, it's reading just even a little bit every morning, or chewing on a thought, that a verse, anything. I I'll have the Bible app on my iPad, and every chapter is one page, and that's 10 minutes in my morning where I just sit there and read it and think about it. And once you start with that, you end up wanting to read more and wanting to dig in, and then adding community with that. Um, you go into a Bible study, and it sounds really intimidating sometimes, but really it just ends up being a bunch of guys or girls sitting around a table talking about life, and they'll read a passage and they'll try to decipher it a little bit more and talk about how that fits into their life. And it's not as intimidating as it sounds. And for somebody that was a new believer, just kind of stepping into that, I was surprised on how easy and welcoming it was. So adding those kind of things into your day-to-day life and into your weeks, and once you add just one or two things, you end up with a whole week full like me. And one day you're just always filled with joy and filled with um, God moving in your life. And when you start seeing, um, it's also that conversation. He's desperate for our um, interaction with him and just wanting to bring him into situations. So the simple prayer of just, um, be with me in this and show me what you want me to do. Um, you'd be amazed and what those little simple prayers can do and what that can open up. And he's just wanting you to think about him more and seek him more. And the more you do, the more you practice those small ones, the prayers get bigger, the you get to hear him bigger. And once you experience what that feels like, then you know when he's speaking to you, and you know when you're supposed to be led into something. And it's all small overtime practice, and it's easy for people to get discouraged because you're not feeling what you think you should be feeling. But his timing is, he knows when the right time is for you, and he just wants you to keep at it. Because there will be times that you get discouraged and you're feeling like you're not doing enough, and he just, that's all. It simply just wants that relationship, and the rest he will take care of.
Yeah. As you were talking, this
Yeah.
picture just popped in my head of like God as a big like father, and then we're just like sitting in his lap as kids, and
Hmm.
reading like he's reading the storybook Bible to us. Like I love how Jen said like he reads it to her, or like she pictures that, and I think that's so much like I guess I used to think like, okay, God, I have to like do these things for you or whatever, but it's like, no, no, no.
Hmm.
He wants to like be with us, and like he wants to hear whatever we have to say, and he wants to speak into everything like that we'll ask him to speak into, like a dad, and it's just wild. Like you don't have to do life on your own. It's like, oh, literally, like the God of the universe wants to help me in my little circumstances, the big ones, like in the little silly things. It's just, it's wild. Like, It's wild. And then when you like are like, oh, I'm hearing him, like what? Like the God of the universe, like you're listening to, and he sees the best in his kids. It's just kind of mind blowing. So I love that. I love how you have a heart for people who are on the beginning, kind of a beginning stages of the relationship with God, because I think it is like such a vulnerable time. It's like a brand new relationship, you know? And so I really love, yeah, that you have a heart for that. Any other, like, just as we close, any wisdom? So, like, say there's a listener who's like interested in being like, I want a relationship with like this father, you know, or just starting off, like getting connected, like any other wisdom that you've, I think, really won. It's hard fought wisdom to share with them just as they kind of begin their journey with Jesus.
Ooh, there's so much.
Yeah.
um, mm, like I was saying, it's easy to get discouraged,
Hmm.
and um, there's there's a certainty that comes with knowing that he has um, the best intention over your life and the best plan for you, and the reminder that it's whatever you see for your life, he might see something totally different, and you might be constantly asking him for something that you think that would totally fulfill your life, and that's going to be the best thing for your future, and he might see something totally different, and it's being okay with, again, giving everything up. And the sooner that you can do that, the sooner that you can be okay with trusting. And then trusting is a really hard thing for a lot of people, and it was for me, and it still is sometimes. It's still sometimes it's so hard. It's like, no, but giving up control can be really difficult and scary. But the sooner you do, the more the more you get, the more happens, the more your life moves. And that's what, like I said, I went 8 years with doing it wrong. And when I finally said, you know what, I'm just, I'm giving up. It's all yours. And after that first, my life got turned upside down. And I was doing things I never thought I would do. I was saying things I never thought I'd say, believing things, and um, having conversations like this that I never thought I'd have. And it's the sooner that you can be okay and knowing that you're in good hands, and viewing him as a good father that would never let anything happen to you, that he's not going to forsake you as long as you're seeking him. And it's hard to say that. It's one thing to say it and one thing to do it, but just keeping that in mind, that his will over your life is way better than yours. um oh man, it's it's a difficult thing, because I know people have told me that in the beginning, and I would just roll my eyes and say, yeah, right. And I know I can't make anybody believe that right off the bat. It takes practice, it takes time, but just know that the sooner you get there, the sooner you give up your life, that's when the good stuff happens.
I love that. That's when the good stuff
Mm,
happens. I love how you said you're held in his hands, or that was, yeah, beautiful.
mm.
Uh, Thank you so much, Joe. Any final thoughts just as we end? Thank you so much for being a part of this. Full of wisdom,
Ah.
humility. You're such a humble man. I really admire you.
Come on, you you are such a light to so many people, Lauren, and it was just an honor to be asked to be on here. Like I said, I never thought I would be having conversations like this, coming from a place where I believed in um, evolution more than God, and didn't believe he could exist, to having my life totally rocked, and he does show up and show you that he's real.
Yeah.
Um, but I appreciate this so much, this opportunity to be able to talk with you about this.
Well, thank you. That's so good. Would you mind just like blessing the listeners, however you feel led, just kind of sharing a little blessing, and then we will
Of
sign off.
course.
Thanks.
Mm. Oh, Father, I thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for opening up opening up my heart and conversation into this. And I felt I felt your words speaking through me today. And I pray that everyone listening to this podcast at least gets something, some little seed planted that helps pull them forward, helps give them hope. And I pray that that seed just grow into something beautiful in their life, um, that this little seed projects them forward, um, and also to the point of community. Lord, you want us in community with one another, and I pray that that seed grow roots that intertwine with others, that just form into this beautiful beautiful community of trees that grow and blossom, bear fruit. And um, I also pray for the hearts of those new believers. I pray that you give them hope. I pray that something I said today sparks a little bit of hope in their life to take that next step, to say that yes to something that's presented to them that could end up changing their life, like it has for mine. And that's all I could ever hope for somebody, whether it just be one person that hears something today. Lord, I pray that you are with them. The Holy Spirit speaks into them and they get to know Jesus just a little bit more. And I thank you so much for Lauren and her leadership and her joy that she spreads on a daily basis. And I pray that she continues, and um, that she remember, even though when we have those days that um, where we feel a little bit drugged down sometimes, Lord, let your joy flow over and overpower any situation, because we know your will and your future for us is so bright. And I thank you, Jesus. I pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you
Hmm.
so much, Joe.
Of course. Thank you, Lauren.